Tony, this is such a great show.
Oh, good. I'm glad you liked it.
What was it about the script when you first got it that you wanted to be a part of it? Because since it's something that happened, especially during our lifetimes,
Right.
not too long ago.
Well, first of all, I mean, I remembered vividly living through the anthrax attacks. I lived just outside New York City. I had young children at the time, and we'd been we're still in shock over 9/11. And then 3 weeks later, the anthrax letters came out, and a postal worker near where we lived died. We used to put Cipro, the antibiotic that you take when you have anthrax poisoning. We put that in our kids' backpacks when they went to school. We didn't open our mail for a month. I mean, that was all very vivid to me. When I read this script, I knew nothing about the ongoing investigation and how complex and crazy it was, because that was all subsumed by the publicity over the war in the Middle East, and also we were living through a pandemic at the time we made the script. So it was like to look at that lens of a biological agent that was seemingly this invisible enemy around us, and was a national crisis that could easily have become an international one, just felt very familiar. And also for me, I mean, the character of Bruce Ivins is just what a fascinating, I knew nothing about him, obviously, and what a fascinating, complicated character.
Yeah. Please tell me a little bit more about Bruce and what you learned from learning about how to play him.
Yes. So Bruce Ivins was the lead anthrax researcher for the United States Defense Department. And he was, he'd spent his career developing the anthrax vaccine. So he was kind of the go-to guy to try and figure out the source of this substance that was in these letters. And Bruce, when you first meet him, he's a very friendly, goofy, kind of eccentric, odd scientist, quite brilliant, and talks too much, but always loves to entertain her. But just a kind of a funny, people adored him and thought he was rather benign. It turned out that Bruce was suffering from some very profound mental illness and was deeply tormented, and never told anybody, and nobody knew. And without giving away too much, he became obsessed with this investigation. And as the story goes on, you find out, more and more Bruce becomes more and more unstable, and his life starts to completely unravel as a result of this investigation. So that, I don't want to spoil it for people, but it gets very crazy.
Yeah, exactly. And with everything, like, how was it on set because I'm sure you're filming it last year during the pandemic.
Here, yeah.
How crazy is it that something that's happening in real life and you're revisiting something similar, but 20 years earlier?
Yeah, it was just surreal. I mean, here we filmed from February to June in Toronto. There were still, the vaccines only started being distributed later in that. It was a little later in Canada. So it was still very scary. There'd just been a big spike over the holidays. The city of Toronto was completely shut down. But the film and television, we were still soldiering on with very strict protocols. Everybody was masked and had face shields, and you tested constantly, and so you never see anybody's face. And it was and we're isolated. We had to be quarantined, and you couldn't socialize with anyone. It was intense. But so then to be telling a story about a biological weapon that might have been unleashed on America and the investigation, and also just about a time in American history where there was this kind of panic that we were experiencing and living through, was just surreal.
Yeah, especially when during that time, how much has changed the country as a whole over the years from that period on.
Well, sure. I mean, and that's a part of our story to some degree. The present, this wave of, maybe is the wrong word, just this, this influx of terror, fear of terrorism that infected our society after 9/11, and with this, changed us, and it made people very fearful, I think, and revealed a lot of, brought to the fore a lot of aspects of human nature that are really hard to deal with. You know, when we get scared, we want answers and we want closure and we want to know who the bad guy is. And we,
Yeah.
and some of those impulses lead us down very unhealthy roads.
Exactly. When this is real life, this isn't a movie where we get the answers.
Yeah.
Sometimes it takes longer to find those answers. But the one thing I did want to ask you about was your cohorts in this show. You have a great cast not around you and everything. What was it like working with Daniel Day Kim, Harry Hamlin?
Mm-hmm. That was great. It's great. I mean, it's such a wonderful group. Daniel and I have such an interesting, because we're the two main characters in the piece, but the characters never meet each other until the fifth episode. So that was really fun anticipating that, because Daniel's his character Matthew Riker's the lead FBI investigator, and as I said, I'm on the scientific side. So by the time we finally got together, we had this great scene where we finally come together. It's like I think it's like a 10-minute scene, and it's really well done, and so that was great. And Daniel's such a wonderful actor, and he really holds up, sustains this really complex investigation in such a brilliant way. Harry plays Tom Brokaw, and he does such a brilliant job of it. Is Tom Brokaw, so that was it was because the anthrax letters were sent to Tom Brokaw's office at NBC, and one of his interns, I think one of his assistants, got sick. So anyway, and my old friend Dylan Baker plays Daniel's boss at the FBI, who's such a wonderful actor. And it was just a great group of people to work with.
And as we're rounding off the interview, I just want to see National Geographic is probably the one place where a show like this could actually be shown and actually let it be done. What was it like knowing that National Geographic is airing this on the 28th?
Well, it was, National Geographic was the perfect place to do this, because they're going to get it right. The science was going to be right, and you have to take certain liberties when you're dramatizing a story and compress time and change things and combine characters and whatnot. But there was this constant sort of feedback from National Geographic, really holding everyone's feet to the fire, and go, okay, but we need the spirit of it to be right. We need the science to be right. We need this to be accurate. So for me as an actor, telling a true life story, you want to make sure it's accurate. So I felt great. So, and they it's a very sophisticated operation. So I knew we were in good hands.
Well, Tony, thank you so much for stopping with us. Really appreciate it. Cannot wait for everybody to see this November 28th. It's a great show.
Thanks.
Thank you.